The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host and or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of the host and or Paranormal Buzz Radio and or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is prohibited. Paranormal Buzz Radio will not be held responsible for you holding your knees, crying, and rocking in a corner in a puddle of your own urine, or being beheaded by a group of children in a cornfield. In fact, if you come across a group of children in a cornfield, we promise to make fun of you as you run away screaming in terror. Listener discretion is advised.
Ghost stories,
folklore,
psychics and mediums,
shamanism,
paranormal investigations,
haunted locations, and all that other weird shit.
You're listening to the Traveler's Moon Podcast
with the paranomad Chris Nielsen
and Kelly McCarville, Moonspinner.
But then we couldn't hear Shay's beautiful voice, and now we're not sure you guys can hear us, and all that fun stuff. So, 20 minutes late, but we're good. We're here.
We're great.
It's fine.
Super fucking duper.
All right. So,
okay. Oh, we were checking the comment
quit
section.
swearing-
Mac
scaring
said,
us,
no,
dude.
said they were, oh my gosh. So much stress. All right. So, welcome everybody to...
the most disorganized show on...
I wouldn't say
Paranormal
disorganized, but
Radio.
most fraught with technical difficulties is probably the more technical term there.
I just
welcome
wanna
to the
point-
Traveler's Moon fucking podcast.
I just want to point something out, though. When it was just me having to talk to Shay, I didn't have any problems.
Yeah, but if we look back at, say the Daylight Paranormal podcast, I had zero issues as well.
Well, but I don't know. I have to think it's you in the mix.
And I have to assume it's you, because we're on your computer, too.
Yeah. No, it's just technology, not my friend. But
This is why we drink alcohol.
we're here. We are here. So tonight,
Haunted objects and Dybbuk boxes.
objects.
Which we weren't sure which one, we thought maybe Dybbuk boxes wouldn't necessarily go in with the haunted objects theme. And then we realized both of those set of words were clickbait, so we decided to go with both.
Well, and not only that, but as we were trying to decide, when we started talking about were we going to do haunted objects or the Dybbuk boxes, we started having our own conversation of, well, aren't they kind of the same thing?
Very similar.
Because there's a lot of similarities between the two items. So, or at least, I guess I should say there's a lot of similarities in my views on the two different things. So, where do we want to start? Crazy show.
First of all, anybody in chat who has thoughts or questions on haunted objects, feel free to toss those out. As always, we're monitoring that very closely. But we had a few particular haunted objects we really wanted to touch base on, and then they kind of segue, I thought, into Dybbuk boxes.
But definitely we want to know, for anybody who's in live chat right now, do kind of put what your thoughts are as far as what are your thoughts on haunted objects? What are your thoughts on Dybbuk boxes? It would be interesting to see what people think before we spew out our thoughts and opinions on things. So, yeah.
We had two particular haunted objects we wanted to touch on.
Throughout the course of history, there's been a couple.
There's been a ton of alleged haunted objects. But we wanted to touch on Robert the Doll and Annabelle.
Because nothing is scarier than fucking creepy dolls.
And I wonder there's got to be some sort of psychological premise to that. It's got to be the fact that
dolls are creepy.
Dolls are very human-esque. They're something that, imitate us. And in a way, in my mind anyways, it makes us almost think about our own, I don't know, solidity in this world, or in a weird way, or immortality. I don't know if I'm getting too poetic with this, but the look on her face says I am, so I'm just going to shut up.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So, haunted dolls. Do you want to start with Annabelle or Robert?
I mean, yeah, everybody's heard of Annabelle. I mean, I would think probably most of the people listening have heard of Robert the doll as well. But in today's age, with the movies that have been out, I don't know that there's very many people who haven't heard of Annabelle. And, you know, the funny thing is, all the movies portray her as being this creepy porcelain face, you know, more almost lifelike doll. And in reality, she was a Raggedy Ann doll, you know, made out of cotton with red yarn hair. I had one.
And I think that's why they make, like, they're so weird to me right now. As like, having that information now, Raggedy Ann dolls creep me out. Like, as a kid, they creep me out, but now it's 10 times worse.
But I'm trying to remember if I had them or if Mom had them, but we had the big Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls, but then I had little bitty ones too. And I had the little one until, gosh, I can't even tell you how long I had that.
So we're kicking this off with Annabelle then?
Yeah, it sounds like.
Okay, let's kick it off with Annabelle.
Like, but, the Raggedy Ann doll, for anybody who doesn't know, it's probably 2.5 to 3 foot tall, made of cotton, red yarn hair, smile on its face. There's nothing other than the fact it's a doll creepy about it. But that's in reality what the Annabelle doll was. And kind of where this entire story started is that a nurse was given this doll as a gift for her 27th birthday, I think it was, 28th. It was her 28th birthday. She received this Raggedy Ann doll as a birthday present from her mom. And nothing special about it, nothing unique about it, but they'd had the doll for a while, and basically the story, the things that the owner reported, this nurse, at first she said it wasn't really anything hugely noticeable. She would notice that the doll looked like it had moved a little bit, like it had crossed its legs or it tipped over or just a little bit of movement to it. Now, to me personally, I guess I don't realize, because she kept it on her bed. So I'm like, I don't pay that close of attention, like where I leave my blanket, that I would know if I came back in if the blanket had moved. But maybe she was anal and knew exactly how she left the doll every day. But it progressed to where she would move a lot, like from room to room. And there would be just too big of things. It wasn't just, she just fell over type of thing. And then it got weird, because then she was saying that, she was claiming that they would find messages written throughout the apartment on parchment paper. And they swear up and down they didn't have any parchment paper in the house. But the messages would be things like, help me and help us, which is a weird statement, help us. But yeah, it was, they found these notes. They'd find the doll in different rooms. And then, at one point they even said that it appeared to be leaking blood. I don't know what that means, but if that were true.
It's like the walls in the Amityville house.
If that were true, though, on a cotton doll, it would stain the doll. But, yeah, no. Let's ignore that little
But
fact.
that's, what if it wasn't blood? What if that was like ectoplasm?
You would think that would still stain the doll, but who knows? Mm-hmm. The only thing that it really did that sounded scary was that supposedly they had a friend that was spending the night at the apartment, and when he woke up in the middle of the night, he felt like he couldn't breathe, and the doll was standing over him. So it was somewhere around that time that they decided they wanted to try to figure out what was going on with this doll, and they decided they were going to have an exorcism, right? Or not an exorcism, sorry, a seance. They were going to have a seance and try to connect with whatever was moving the doll. And during this seance, they supposedly connected with the spirit of a little girl named Annabelle Higgins. That's how Annabelle got her name, was Annabelle Higgins. This little girl claimed that she was that she had resided on the property before they were apartments, and that she had died on the property at the age of 7. And she was friendly, and all she wanted to do was stay with the girls and be loved. So these girls gave her permission to inhabit the doll.
Seems like a good idea.
Have these girls never watched a scary movie in their lives? I mean, come on. And if it truly is just a spirit, why did she need permission? I don't know. I don't understand the whole thing, but that just seems like not good logic on their part. This is where I found like kind of contradictory statements. So at one thing I was reading said that that's where the Warrens took interest in the case, and it almost sounded like they had contacted the owner. But then there's another story that said the owners had reached out to the Warrens and said, hey, we need your help on this. But either way, Ed and Lorraine Warren got interested, and they went in to examine the doll, and they determined, of course, that it wasn't the spirit of a little 7-year-old girl, but it was, in fact, an inhuman entity, and that this entity didn't just want to possess the doll, she wanted a human host. So that's where the story kind of ends, because the Warrens took the doll home. So it's like the only other part that they added to it is, as they're driving home, I guess Ed had told Lorraine, strap in because this is going to be one heck of a ride or something like that. And they claimed that there were a lot of experiences in the car, and at one point they had to sprinkle the doll with holy water to get it to calm down. But since then, it's been locked in a case in the Warren Museum. So
we talked about this prior to the show. And I love the fact that we're doing a podcast together, and I love our topics for this podcast. What I don't love is more and more every day I raise my eyebrow at Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah, and even just saying, and don't get me wrong, I didn't know them. Didn't know them when they were alive. I don't know much about them now. It's not like I have some huge following to them, but I feel.
But if you if I was to tell the story with any, if I were to get a Warren-based story, and I were to replace it with any other name outside of Ed and Lorraine Warren, we would have a hard time.
Oh, we'd rip them up. But why? Why? And that's a good topic. And we said this last time we were on the show, almost that we need to do a show just about the Warrens, because why do we have such a hard time speaking out against something that they did?
Well, I feel like that's fairly easy. That is, if I shouldn't say every, most paranormal investigators today can trace their roots back to the Warrens. And that's a, hard thing to kind of recognize. But yeah, that feels like a really deep conversation for another show. Yeah. So what you were talking about with Annabelle is the idea of a external spirit, essentially
possessing. Yeah, I mean, theoretically, yeah, it was this little 7-year-old girl that was possessing the doll, but according then to the Warrens, no, it was an inhuman spirit. Nothing that.
But anyway, either way, it's something possessing an item.
Yes.
And I think that's where people get a lot of their fixation on haunted objects. So I had a question for you. So we broke this down between the two of us. One of us got Annabelle, one of us got Robert. Obviously, she got Annabelle, I got Robert.
Because Robert freaks me out.
Oh, Robert's freaky. And to read up on him more, he's even freakier. So did you want to break that down a little bit, or do you want to do our 2 haunted objects and then do a big old breakdown?
No.
We'll do our two objects and then do a big old haunted
I was going to say, I mean, we'll use this we're going to break it down after, but a
segue then into, we went from a doll that was, allegedly possessed, for lack of a better word, to something that is, in a lot of ways, its own deity, its own intelligence. Robert the doll, unlike Annabelle, is a quote-unquote someone. This isn't something that is inhabiting a doll. This is either an object of its own intelligence, or I've even gone as far as to say a cursed object.
Do you remember though when I was sharing this stuff about the Annabelle and you said you're going to have to Craig bullshit?
Yeah. No, we were talking about the Dybbuk box. about
I don't
crime.
remember what it was, but
So
I have to cry bullshit. But carry on. I'll cry bullshit after you're done sharing your story.
So this we're going to start Robert's story in the early 90s. And the story of Robert is already at a fairly shaky start. So
Because he's a doll?
the facts are somewhere around the age of 8. We're not even sure exactly when. Gene Robert Otto, everybody called him Gene. Around the age of 8, Gene received a toy doll. And this is already where it gets shaky. He either received it from a servant to the family house. They are this is in Fort, I was about to say Fort Lauderdale, but that is not true. That is in Key West, Florida, which is already suspicious because Florida. So Key West, Florida, fairly prominent family in the area. They have house servants. So Gene either received Robert the doll as like a homemade gift from a servant or from his grandfather. And this allegedly came from the same German toy company that actually made like the original teddy bear, like the one dedicated to Theodore Roosevelt.
So I may be jumping the gun, and this may be further on in your thing, and if it is, just tell me to shush. But on the theory that it was given to him by a house servant, wasn't it also that the house servant was something like into hoodoo or something like that? Is that further on?
No.
Okay.
No. So that's that was allegedly what it was. It was allegedly. This is all so some of this is factual, some of this is allegedly, and allegedly yes. If we follow the backstory of it was given by a house servant, they were allegedly into voodoo, and I just don't know which to buy. All we know for certain,
that makes a much better story, which is almost what
better.
Makes me wonder if that isn't a story versus he got it from his grandpa.
Yeah,
plus grandpa's the one with the money.
Yeah, it's all very strange. So from there, Gene becomes very attached to Robert, like weirdly attached, like takes
obsessed.
Obsessive. Yeah, it's an obsessive ownership of an object. If I had a thought, and I'm just gonna let it go. But yeah, a lot of weird stuff to kind of go along with that. So like he would be in the other room, his parents would hear him like whispering to Robert, and Robert allegedly would reply in a very deep voice. Spooky shit.
But haven't you ever, I don't know, do guys never play dolls and they talk in different voices?
I would think, and again, this is all, basically storytelling, but could you not tell the difference, say, one of your kids was, as a child, had like a doll, and they would make him talk, but just in a different voice? Wouldn't you still know that was your kid's voice?
What if he's really good at it? I mean, look like Jeff Dunham.
So he was a ventriloquist prodigy.
Well, I'm not saying he's a ventriloquist because you don't know if his mouth was moving, but look how different Jeff Dunham's voices sound. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
But at that point, it's still a child's voice, and it's not that developed.
Yeah. I was just thinking when I played with my Barbies, they all had different voices. He's writing down a question.
I'm writing down a question. I'm sorry. So, anyways, it was the parents didn't identify it as any voice Gene had ever made. Is basically what I'm getting at. And it just stayed at that level of weird, which is, it's obviously weird, but it's not over escalating. Until one night, Gene says that he woke up with Robert at the foot of his bed. And now we're going to cut to his mother. His mother is awoken in the middle of the night by what sounds like furniture being tipped over, and Gene is losing his shit, crying for help. Apparently awful things are happening in Gene's room. So mom tries to open the bedroom door. She can't get it open, has to tussle with it a little bit, and eventually door opens. Jean is cowering in the fetal position in the corner of the room, and Robert is sitting at the foot of the bed just staring. Fucking horrifying.
The doll wasn't doing anything.
When she walked in the room, it's basically Toy Story, but more fucked up. He's not going to do stuff when people are around.
Well, what did Jean say was happening?
He said, okay, so that's actually where I was going to segue. Jean's mom comes in the room, what the fuck's happening? This is a recurring theme throughout Jean's childhood, and it's a single phrase. He looks mom right in the eyes and says, Robert did it. It's creepy. So these commotions actually continue for quite a while. Throughout the years, a ruckus in the room. Can you describe the ruckus, sir? Well, it sounds like his room getting all fucked up. And so, mom comes in, furniture's flipped over, toys are torn apart, and eventually she decides that they have a little family powwow and decide to banish Robert to the attic. Now, and this is a claimed thing. This is one of those allegedly. It was his aunt's idea to, cram Robert in the attic. Instead of burning it, instead of throwing it away, instead of finding some way to get rid of it, just put it away in the attic. And it's claimed that the night that she suggested this, she died.
Wouldn't you think that she would be the one that Robert would save? Because Mom would have torched his butt.
But she did. She put him in the attic. But she suggested exile the doll, so he decided to kill the bitch.
Oh, I got it. So it was her idea to get rid of the doll in the first place. I was thinking the mom wanted to get rid of the doll, and the aunt's like, no, let's just put it in the attic. Thinking that the aunt was the savior.
That's the biggest hole in the plot. No one at any point, it seems, just thought it was a good idea just to get rid of the freaking doll.
Well, because it's a story.
So once in the attic, Robert spent quite a few years in the attic. And throughout the duration of those years, people heard footsteps and the occasional giggle coming from the attic.
See, giggles are no. No. Just no.
Can you imagine that? You're fast asleep, Robert's in the attic, and you just hear a
For some reason, that laugh would not weird me out as much as.
No, I gotta assume Robert's like a kind of guy. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit. Jean has grown up. Jean has left home for a while. I want to say he went overseas.
We gotta stop creating Matt nightmares.
Sorry, Matt. It gets worse. So Jean gets older, moves out, becomes an adult. He actually becomes an artist. Their home now in Florida is known as the Artist House. And he ends up moving back to his childhood home with his wife, Annette. Now it's said that Annette hated Robert because apparently they kept this freaking thing the whole time.
I thought it was locked in the attic.
Yeah, but they still kept him. So Jean comes home, gets Robert out of the attic for God knows what reason. And Annette just hates it. So she's like, hey, put him back in the attic.
I'm tired of sharing my wedding bed with you and Robert.
Yeah, because this unhealthy connection is continued. So fortunately, unlike the aunt, Annette did not die. Just had a not so great relationship for the rest of her life. Which she had to share her life with a man and his doll. To Jean's credit, he was trying to be a good husband. He had wanted to take Robert, put him back in the attic. I couldn't get specific details on this. The only thing I found, it was phrased like this throughout a series of places that I looked up information, was that Robert tried to put him in the attic, and Robert insisted he not be kept there. I don't know if he's actually having conversations with these dolls.
I thought it said as an adult that he was continuing to have conversations with them.
Oh, yeah, I was about to get there. So apparently they're having some sort of telepathic relationship, but Robert insists, don't put me there, put me where I can see the street. And they end up putting him in this turret room in the house where Robert would get a nice street view. So, over the years, people claimed to see Robert because you couldn't just put the doll in the room. They had to give him his own little rocking chair in front of the window. People would claim to see the doll constantly moving in the window. Like, some people actively avoided this street because they know they'd see Robert occasionally, like, disappear, or he was said to mock children as they went by. It's weird shit. Basically, he lived in this room until about 1974, where Gene would do his art and have just daily conversations with this doll. And I can't help but get this mental image. So, from the street, all people saw was this doll occasionally disappear or mock children. I didn't really specify what he did, but I'm assuming there was some sort of actual body movement to it. All I can imagine is this dude in his late 60s, early 70s on the floor under the window, just shaking a doll at people, trying to fuck with them.
I would.
But yeah, this, like I said, it occurred until 1974 when Gene eventually died. But the story of Robert continues. So post Gene's death, the house was acquired by a Myrtle Reuter, and I'm probably saying that last name wrong. It's Reuter. She purchased the home after Gene's death, and for some reason that I don't understand, became like a caretaker for Robert. And Robert spent the next few years mysteriously moving about the house and making the guests of the house extremely uncomfortable. It was just constantly said, like, this doll's creeping us out, but for some reason they never got rid of it. It was actually even said that when people like spoke negatively about Robert in Robert's presence, if you're familiar with Robert's face, you already know it's creepy. If you haven't, take a second. We'll wait here. Go look up Robert the Doll.
We'll wait here.
Or you can pause your podcast. Look up Robert the Doll. He's got a creepy face. But people would say that his face would, like, become twisted at whenever somebody spoke negatively of him. Like, his creepy face would get creepier.
You can't see it, but I'm rolling my eyes.
So, to this day, Robert still lives in Key West, Florida, in a museum. It said he still brings bad luck to customers of the museum. And he keeps just giving people the willies. So go ahead, shoot.
All of this was happening in the day and age of cameras and video recorders and all of this. Why does nobody have anything to back any of this up?
There is a little bit. And also, this wasn't just the day of video recorders, because a lot of Robert's early work was in, like, the 1910s.
I thought it wasn't that old.
It is that old.
Oh,
early 1900s. So, cameras existed, but they weren't readily available. And video cameras definitely weren't. So for the longest time, he was just basically up in the attic running around and...
I think Gene had an unhealthy relationship with a doll.
It comes full circle, because now adult men are also having unhealthy relationships with dolls in this day and age. In every house a heartache, or in every dream home a heartache. I was trying to make a Roxy Music reference.
Sorry, folks, the joys of kids.
Forgot where we were now. I was trying to make a Roxy Music reference. I'm sure not a whole lot of people got that anyways. So yeah, it's and that's the weird thing, because everything when it comes to a haunted object is just a story. We have a bunch of good questions here on haunted objects. Did you want to hit those before we got into our actual thoughts on haunted objects? Or do you want to...
I would say let's talk about it a little bit, and then we'll probably get to the questions. Because, I think it's important to kind of put out there that we've shared the supposed stories about these, but even as I was... and I knew most of this about the Annabelle already, and knew a lot about this, about the Robert doll, too. as I'm going through them, my brain is going, sure, right, okay, whatever.
But to be fair, we share stories with people all the time who have the same reaction.
And I know that there's the one of mine, like I've shared, that's got that same
even
response.
the smaller things where it's like to a, I would say average brained person, or. But
these aren't small things. We're talking about big ass dolls moving themselves around the house. And
even when I talk to certain people about like EVP, I'll be like, hey, I got this ghost voice on audio, and that's not a new concept. That's been happening forever. Certain people will still roll their eyes because they've never experienced it.
So has anybody ever said, "What is Robert?"
Robert is Robert. I think that's the difference between Robert and Annabelle.
But why? Is
why
the
not?
Spirit trapped in Robert?
No, because Robert is Robert. Robert's, I don't know. So and it might be incorrect in saying this. I lean somewhere between the only thing I can think to call it is a cursed object. But he also has his own sentience, if that makes sense. Like somehow this thing got consciousness, whether it was from, a voodoo housekeeper or whatever it was.
Or from some boy man with a weird attachment.
But it wasn't a boy man. Gene was 8. Gene was a little kid. That's the age that kids get toys.
He was a boy when it started.
Yeah.
Maybe Gene just had a screw loose.
Well, anybody with a consistent, ongoing relationship with the childhood doll has probably got something loose. And Shay's wondering in chat if it's an attachment, but to me, Annabelle is an attachment. An attachment in my mind means an outside spirit came in and is like, hey, here's this thing, and I want to be with it. And I'm going to even occasionally behave through it. But to me, Robert had none of that. There wasn't a prior thing to Robert, at least that we've gotten to know thus far. There wasn't an Annabelle Higgins who died prior to Robert. Robert just came to be.
So they mass-produced this Robert doll,
But he didn't.
Or they produced 1 million dolls in this factory that he came out of, whatever the case may be. There may only have been one Robert produced, but obviously whoever made him made more than one doll.
Unless it came from the housekeeper, in which case it was a handmade doll.
Which I guess in that case I could almost go for the handmade thing, but then still, if she knew how to make a doll, maybe she had made other dolls before, so why would this particular doll be the one that some random energy decided to shove itself into? There's too many that makes no senses to it.
And I think that's why Robert's weirdly more fascinating to me.
But it's the same thing with this Annabelle, if it truly wasn't the spirit of a 7-year-old girl who died on that property, then where the hell did Annabelle come from? Or whether
let's
it
think
was
it's
a
an inhuman
7-year-old
entity.
spirit.
Maybe the Warrens were right.
But was it?
But was it not?
But was it? And okay, but let's think about that for 1 second. So there's an inhuman spirit in Annabelle, and something as simple as a glass box is going to keep her in there, keep that demon in there. Bullshit.
Do you think it will?
I cry bullshit.
Do most people think it will?
I cry bullshit.
Do most people think it will?
I don't know.
I would think they do, in which case it just might.
Okay, so hold on. Let's go with that theory then. So if I ever get to go to the Warren Museum and I walk up to the case and think, bullshit, that's going to hold a demon in, does the demon get out?
To you.
But I don't believe in demons. So.
Well, then no, because you don't believe in demons. You don't have that predisposition.
Believe in demons. I'll believe in one if I ever have reason to. But
I think that's what I'm getting at, is we a lot of times talk like if you get out of a lot of paranormal activity what you mentally put into it. If you mentally think, yes, there's a demon in Annabelle, and they're doing good by putting her behind a glass door, that's going to keep you safe.
That's going to keep the Warrens safe.
And you. If you go up to see Annabelle, and in your mind, which I'm thinking is going to be the average person. So I'm not speaking for you, I'm speaking for the average person. The average person's like, holy shit, that's Annabelle. There's a demon in there. Good thing there's this glass As illogical as it seems. Stop. Hang on. Just let me. As illogical as it seems to us, because it is fucking illogical. If that's what a person needs to think they're safe, they're going to be safe.
Thank God there's this extremely clear, see-through, highly breakable object between me and this demon, but I'm safe.
But if they believe it is, it'll work.
Well, and I get that, because that goes back to the whole concept of if I believe being hit by a bagel is going to expel the demon, then it's going to work. But
That's what I was kind of getting at. I just didn't remember what object it meant.
it was a bagel.
Yeah, it's a bagel.
Yeah. But still, why? Why? Let's say that it's an inhuman spirit in Annabelle. Why bother? Why bother possessing a cotton doll?
Because who's going to put their guard up around a cotton doll?
But what was it trying to accomplish?
I mean, what's demon always trying to accomplish? Fuckery. Just fuckery.
But it didn't do any fuckery.
Because they put it behind glass.
I'm going to have to grab a bowl. And I don't know. I mean, I would be a little more convinced if there wasn't a demon involved in every Warden case, but yeah, I don't know. But like, for the Robert doll, it's just, it wasn't like he ever did anything to hurt anybody necessarily. There's absolutely zero tie between the aunt dying and Robert. It's not like they, so I mean, what was the point? Let's say that it truly was some energy possessing that doll. Why? What for?
And that's the thing. If we go off the idea that it came from this voodoo priestess, maybe she felt slighted by the family and had to incite a little chaos, But
I thought, I want to say from the stories I heard this, when it was the servant that gave him the doll, she liked him.
Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe it's just because I have such a cynical brain. I don't know if cynical is the right word for it, but I have to lean more towards the dude was crazy.
But that means everybody else was crazy. Mm-hmm. I could understand if like a single person was like, oh my gosh, this doll talks to me. But countless people have said, hey, I heard footsteps up in the attic when, Robert was around. That means his mom was crazy to actually believe that he was eviscerating his toys and flipping over his furniture as a small child.
So you never did anything and blamed it on a brother or a sister?
I've done things, but I've never blamed it on a doll.
But he didn't have brothers and sisters.
I don't know if my brain could have ever reached towards blame it on the doll.
People blame things on their dogs.
But that's the thing too, though. Like if you go off of like a mother's intuition, if you see a room beat to shit, and hang on, quit it. I know you're just prepping for an answer. Actually, listen to me first. You go into a room, it beats shit, and it is Ian, 8 years old, cowering in a corner, terrified. What?
He did it. It's the only logical explanation.
But we're in a field where logical answers don't actually exist.
So in all the things that were messed up in his room when his room was in complete disarray, was it items that he could not have done himself? Like, were there dressers overturned?
Yeah, like when I say furniture, I mean furniture. And this is back in like the 1910s when they made this shit out of solid oak.
And is that an exaggeration of the story, or did that really happen?
Well, it should be fair. That question could be asked for literally any paranormal phenomenon.
We could bring up our last show where we're talking about how much of the Lutz's story was exaggerated. Do I believe that a family can hear footsteps in their house? 100%. Mama Pat and I heard them all the time growing up. But did anybody ever actually see the doll move? Because that's the same case with Annabelle. They didn't see the doll move.
But there was plenty of people who claim to have seen the doll move. There's people who
watched him walk.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the problem. It's from a window. And it's people on the street seeing him.
But if they've heard all the stories, then you're looking for that. Pareidolia. So they see somebody moving in the window and they're like, oh, God, it's Robert. Or like you said, there's some crazy little man laying on the floor going, oh, look at my doll.
I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying, in my mind, in my feelings, there's something different. There's something just kind of more special.
I just wondered if there was ever anybody who saw either Annabelle.
There's people
or
who claim
Robert.
to see Robert's facial expression change.
Did they see it change, or do they think he looked different on occasion?
They said his face changed.
They saw it change.
Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying?
And I think that's what I'm trying to get at too. Is the difference between a possessed doll and a living doll. Like, per everybody's first-hand accounts, true or not, Robert was a thing. Robert was a person.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I believe that there's maybe something to it, and there's a possibility that they were hearing things in the house. Wholeheartedly believe that that's a possibility. Maybe there was something to this doll, and maybe it could be something as simple as manifestation. So let's think about that route for a second. This dude was obviously obsessed with this doll, wanted him to be real. So did he manifest all these things into happening because he so desperately wanted Robert to be real?
Potentially. But I don't
and you'll still have all the same results. You'll hear the footsteps. You'll hear the sounds. We started late. We're fine. So, you can manifest those things into happening. And I guess that's what I'm thinking. And you've been on cases where you've gone out where somebody said their house was haunted.
But it wasn't.
Because they manifested that energy. It doesn't mean that things
I've also been on a lot
happening.
of cases where they didn't manifest energy. They just tricked their brains into it.
That too. But I'm not even saying that. Okay, so sometimes poltergeists are a result of the inhabitants of the house. Could that have been the case here?
I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't be.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking with his obsession with that doll, is that possibly what caused that? Yeah. So do we want to, we've talked a lot about this, we're kind of beating a dead horse. Do you want to try to answer some questions?
Yeah, we have questions on, I was going to say, we have a lot of good questions on haunted objects. We want to do Dybbuk boxes for another episode.
We can. We didn't get there. Sorry, guys. We never have enough time in our shows.
We really don't. So yeah, we'll hit these questions and we'll just make Dybbuk boxes
or
another
we'll talk
show.
about it in conjunction with something else. Okay. I'm going to scroll back and look for some questions.
Oh, I don't want to do this in conjunction though, because Dybbuk boxes are fascinating to me. I want to kind of dive deep.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right, so these are all from Darren. I got them all right here.
You have that one? That's a good one.
Yeah, literally all of them.
Okay.
So, do haunted objects have a half-life? Is there a time frame in which an object can be haunted? And I suppose this should go into...
Do we believe that objects are haunted?
Yeah, I was about to say, for my personal feelings towards it, per my experience, so to speak, I've never actually encountered a spirit who is ball and chain attached to an object. I've come across I've got this microphone here in front of me, and it's my favorite microphone. And even in death, I want to stick around that microphone because I love it so much.
If it works.
If it works, which is 50-50. Holy shit. But yeah, I think that's what a lot of what people attribute to haunted objects being, and that's a spirit that's choosing to stick around an object. Now, there could also be objects out there that get kind of like a residual stain from something. Like if you were to get the axe from the Villisca Axe murder house, I think that's got some funky energy attached to it. Do I think it's an intelligent spirit necessarily? No. But I think there's funky energy attached to it. So I think it's either weird energy or a spirit choosing to stick around something they prefer in life.
And that's why I thought we needed to address kind of what our thoughts were on this, because my answer to the question of how long can an object be haunted, well, as long as the spirit chooses to be attached to that object, because it is not the item that is haunted. The item on its own, and this is where I have a problem with Robert, the item on its own without a spirit is just an item.
But what if the item has a spirit? What if Robert has his own singular spirit?
Then there was a spirit, Robert, that was in him.
But the spirit is Robert. That would be like me saying there's a spirit Kelly, but you're still right here.
But it's still a spirit. So it's still a spirit of a person who's in the dog.
But what if there's this gray area where it doesn't have to be a human spirit to...
Well, that goes back to the
Take
Annabelle,
up
where
residence.
it's inhuman.
But it's taking up residence in something, like your spirit takes up your body, as opposed to another spirit that's already kind of existed elsewhere.
And I decide to cling to an object instead of a body. Totally understand that. But it's still not the object that's haunted. It's a spirit haunting an object. There's a difference.
But with that logic, when it comes to like my understanding of object, Robert's, your spirit is haunting your body right now.
Kind of.
I mean, I guess in a weird way. Oh God, I made it weird.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
See, yeah. To answer the question, I guess I don't think they have a half-life. It's as long as they feel like
it's as
sticking
long as
around.
The spirit chooses to stay attached to that particular object.
So that being said, and I feel like this could be an entire episode. Do you think a exorcism can be performed on an object?
I think an exorcism can be performed on a spirit.
So yes.
No.
But the spirit's around the item.
But you're still doing the exorcism on the spirit, not the item.
But if they're choosing to stick to the item,
but the item isn't possessed. The spirit is possessing it.
So I'm picking up what you're putting down. So basically, exorcism only happens when it's a full inhabitant, not something that's choosing to stand by something. It's the difference between being inside of the object as opposed to hanging out next to it.
It's expelling the energy, not the physical, tangible object.
But they do exorcisms on people all the time.
Because they're expelling that energy, that negative energy from the person.
No, they're expelling a spirit and something intelligent.
Yeah.
They're
expelling the energy. So
I get what you're saying. A spirit is just energy.
Right.
But in my mind, that'd be like trying to clear the negative vibes off the Villisca Axe murder axe.
Yeah. But the axe itself isn't haunted.
Exactly.
It would be the energy.
But I'm talking about like a conscious spirit in an
Yeah.
exorcism.
Yeah. You're still trying to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So it's still me coming into the room and saying, "Chris, get the hell out of here. Chris, I command you to leave." You know, I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to the chair you're inhabiting. I'm talking to you.
I feel like we just need to do an exorcism episode.
Because
so out of the two, between Robert and Annabelle, Darren wants to know if you had the opportunity to sit down and do some experimenting.
Oh, Robert in a heartbeat.
Robert in a heartbeat?
Robert in a heartbeat, because he is the one that I don't know that I... Annabelle, I think, was probably...
There's more questions with Robert than Annabelle.
Yeah, because the whole thing about Annabelle is supposedly it was either an inhuman spirit or it was a spirit of a 7-year-old girl. They have an explanation supposedly of what was going on with that doll. However, she's more famous than Robert is. But this whole thing about Robert, there's part of me that wants to go in there and either be proved wrong or prove him wrong. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to be proven wrong.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I want to see more with Robert.
Yeah.
So that goes to, we've listed 2 of the more well-known haunted objects. What do you think is the world's most haunted object?
Well, see, that goes back to the concept of, do you count a house as a haunted object?
Because I was gonna hit that point if you didn't.
It's the same concept. There is an item that a spirit is attached to, and that's what they choose to.
So by that information, Waverly Hill Sanatorium is a significantly more haunted object than Robert the Doll.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so is like Penhurst Asylum, and so is that there's multiple spirits that reside there that are attached to that particular item. So I don't know that I think that a haunted location is any less
a haunted object than Annabelle.
Yeah. Or Robert. Because Robert either is inhabited by a spirit or Jean's crazy.
So what do you think is the most haunted place in the world?
Oh, God. Don't ask me that question. I don't know because I haven't been everywhere. I mean, I can listen to the stories and I can say...
So just base it off of stories.
I don't know. You'd almost have to think it would have to be someplace like England, where, I mean, the history is so much older.
But I think it almost kind of falls back into...
Or Scotland, or Ireland, you know.
But I don't know, because I don't want to say spirits have a half-life, but you don't hear about spirits of a Neanderthal.
Here's my theory on that. And this goes into a whole other topic.
So just to be clear, we are at an hour. Do we need to make another episode just for soul evolution?
Yeah, I was going to say, let me 30-second tell you why I think that happens, and it can be...
I'm going to hold you to that 30 seconds.
Okay. So my theory is the reason that we see so few spirits that are from a long, long time ago is basically our soul evolution happens. Reincarnation is what happens. And after we have been dead for a certain period of time, there's no set period of time, but eventually our soul will either reincarnate, which means we're not there to be a spirit anymore, or we've gone through all of our lessons, we've totally evolved our soul, and we become a part of the collective again.
That's pretty close to 30 seconds. Also, so I did research on Dybbuk boxes, and apparently Jews believe something similar.
There's a lot of religions that believe something similar to that. I think we need to do a show simply on that.
Oh yeah, we definitely will. But hey, we're pretty much at our hour here.
Even having started late. Good God, it goes fast.
So I think we hit all the questions.
Yeah, we've got, we don't necessarily have our next show 100% lined up. We're waiting for some confirmations of some guests. So we can't, normally we like to tell you what's coming on in the next 2 weeks.
But we can't say for sure. What we can say is
secret. So, but let's just say that right at the moment we're in talks with...
I'm literally in...
literally, we both have an in message on our phone from a couple different guests that we think you guys will find rather amusing. So, we're excited about that. So, we'll be announcing some of our upcoming guests here very soon. We just want to lock in dates before we start telling you guys. So, we will either in 2 weeks have a guest, or we'll tackle a topic again.
Yeah, and I think I almost feel like we owe it to people to do Dybbuk boxes. So
we need to do a Dybbuk box somewhere. We need to do reincarnation, soul evolution somewhere. We've got a list of topics. And, guys, on that note, I mean, I don't know that we have ever said this before, but on that note, if you guys have topics that you would like us to cover, go ahead and shoot us a message. Drop something into our DMs and let us know, hey, have you ever thought about talking about this? We will, if it's not something that we know, we'll
find
talk about it. We'll either find someone who's more of an expert than us, or we'll do the research and give it a go if we think it's a good topic. So
that being said, you ready to knock this sign off out of the park?
I suppose so, because we are definitely running late.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Traveler's Moon podcast. As always, we are your hosts.
Oh, I get to go first? Callan McCarville Moonspinner.
And Chris Nielsen in a chair covered by a bed sheet till we find a proper cover for it. Yes, thank you for tuning in to the Traveler's Moon podcast. If you're listening to the show after the fact, be sure to join us for the live show every other Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you don't know when that falls, as far as an exact date goes, be sure to go to the Traveler's Moon social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Traveler's Moon. Be sure to give it a like, follow. If you're listening to this anywhere, be sure to leave a review, thumbs up, whatever. Give us some good marks.
And just an extra thank you for everybody tonight who was in live chat with us. We appreciate the fact that you guys hung in there, even with us getting a late start. We love you guys for that, so thank you. And we will hope to see you all in chat next time in 2 weeks.
Next time, 2 weeks, the 24th.
2 weeks, which happens to be right before the Cedar Falls Psychic and Paranormal Expo.
Fun.
Like days before.
Days before.
So if I'm a little out of my damn mind.
So yeah, oh my gosh, for the first time we can actually talk about places we're going to be. So yeah, next show, Cedar Falls Psychic and Paranormal Expo is going to be where we're going to be. I guess we're going to talk more about that next time. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We love you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, you sexy beaches.